Hello my friends, let's go straight away to Groznyi, Chechnya. This is the office building, a beautiful one in Groznyi city that was built after the Second Chechen War is over and Chechnya lost it to Russia. Actually, the real name of Chechnya is Ichkeria. But now, unfortunately, with Kadyrov in power, Chechnya is the part of Russia and Kadyrov Akhmat battalion is fighting for Russians too. So the infrastructure in Chechnya is the legitimate target of Ukrainian armed forces. Before, there were a couple of the strikes in multiple of the cities of Chechnya. Mostly the army barracks of the Akhmat soldiers were hit. And this is not a residential building, guys, just for you to understand. But this building also belongs to the very influential figures in Russia, also in Chechen Republic, to Kadyrov himself. So someone's business just was fired up this morning. Yeah, something was smoking out there. It's also important as the sign to show that Ukraine is capable for the long-range strikes to hit even Groznyi city, and Russia is not capable to defend the structure. Groznyi city is like this postcard of Putin and Kadyrov. You see, we built the Groznyi city, but they do not mention that before they destroyed, like Russian army, they destroyed this city, completely flatlining it to the ground, and oh, now you have this Groznyi city new building, hooray! But they cannot return all of those locals who were perished under the Russian airstrikes and artillery fire. And Putin is looking for the same scenario for Ukraine, to put some sort of the Ukrainian Kadyrov in power and later on force Ukraine to fight for Russia, as he forced Chechens to fight for himself. And Kadyrov himself already promised some sort of the gift in return for Ukraine. Will he say the same stuff before then Ukraine hit some of the soldiers' barracks of Akhmat battalion? No promise was delivered, and actually he's in lack of the capabilities. He doesn't have those regular armed forces as Russian army. Akhmat army is still in lack of aviation and long-range tools, and then they were giving with air defense systems, they shut down Azerbaijani airplane over Groznyi. Yeah, you might remember that case with Embraer that lost all of the hydraulic system, flight controls. It's crazy. That's how incompetent they really are. They're best in filming TikToks and stuck in a traffic jams in attempt to go to Rostov to deal with the Wagner army. Nevertheless, for the last 24 hours, there were multiple of the strikes on Russian facilities. Again, we have the video from Ukrainian very capable primary drone unit. And they post some of the videos from Crimea. This is the radar dome, some sort of the big facility. Antenna radio couple, so Russia has many of those in Crimea. Crimea is like this big, unsinkable air carrier with many of the Russian bases. And Russia still has options to send more and more equipment to Crimea, so this story may continue for a quite extensive period of time. But almost every day Russia loses equipment, so one more radar was hit. This is antenna they called. And one more, some of the surveillance system, maybe communication system. And what is this? This is some sort of the airplane. Oh, this is Orion, the Russian drone, which is the analog of the Bayraktar TB2. Yeah, definitely it is Orion that was hit. A radio system Podlot also was hit. Russians tried to hide it away from the main base, but it was found after all. Some of the supply vehicles as well, looks like a video game, but those are the real images. And this is a fat target, a Russian Sukhoi 24 aircraft. This is the tactical bomber. By the way, Ukraine also has Sukhoi 24 aircraft in its army, and they're used as the launching platforms for Scalp and Storm Shadow cruise missiles. Very capable. And here you might see a ladder to the cockpit. The airplane was airworthy. It was flying for some sort of the operations. Well, not any longer. But the Kabooms were not over with that. For example, in Krasnodarsky Krai, Ukraine hit LNG terminal, gas terminal of Russia. Here we have the satellite confirmation from firms, fire detection, NASA satellites, and here is the Russian gas. How it's been used? Well, basically to warm up atmosphere. Russians, if you are cold, call Ukraine. Ukraine might help. It was really huge. Russia stopped the operation of this LNG terminal. It cannot export its liquid gas any longer via the Black Sea. It was the biggest terminal. Also, for whatever reason, Syzran refinery of Russian Federation caught fire the last night. Fire continues there even now. Every week Ukraine hits 1-2 refineries, sometimes more, but Ukraine also expands its targets, hitting Russian other sensitive infrastructure, like for example gas and some of the power plants, military infrastructure, especially in Crimea. That is what you saw for the last couple of days. There were 2 videos published at least. And all of those kinetic sanctions, they gradually remove resources from Russia. Russian economy cannot sustain it for many years, okay? So maybe for a couple of years, they still may go fight, maybe even take the ground. That is what we all expect, because Russia, after all, it has advantage, more resources compared to Ukraine. But if we look at it from the longer perspective, there is no any chance for Russia to be finally victorious even in Ukraine. Their economy cannot sustain this prolonged war. Yes, there is also the chance for Ukraine to struggle more and for Russia to break through the front lines. Here it's early to say 100%, but if the war continues as it is, yes, Russia may take some ground, but as a result, there could be no Russian economy, so no Russia itself. Country is all about economy. Without economy, Russia is unable to sustain its army, it will not be capable even to pay for its soldiers, and the first motivation for them to go and fight is to obtain millions of rubles.
На, еще! Сбили. На!
Yeah, Russians, they're very happy that they heard some of the drones flying and some of the kabooms. That guy filmed the kaboom in Alchevsk. Alchevsk is the occupied territory of Ukraine, Lugansk Oblast, and the eyewitness was from Russian army. He's working behind the front lines. 2 of the substations were hit the last night over there. And now let's go to the front lines updates, because we have some of the outstanding news coming from Berdyansk. Yes, Berdyansk, far away from the Ukrainian-controlled territory. Nevertheless, Ukrainian military intelligence performed some sort of the special military operation right at the Russian checkpoint. Let's go for it. Actually, the operation was performed last month, November 19th. There were several of the Russian cars, military ones, a military police together with military forces, but something started to happen. Several of the kabooms. Here on the top there is a billboard saying that Berdyansk is Russia, Berdyansk это Россия, which is not true, as we know. It is just a temporary occupied territory, and the locals report about Babach, Kaboom. Wow, what happened there? Well, after all, it's kind of interesting to see those things happening quite far away from the Ukrainian-controlled territories. It means that the Russian troops cannot feel safe elsewhere, even in Berdyansk. Guys, I follow some of the analytics, OSINTs, and one of those is Unit Observer. From his data, Russia moved some of the forces to the Pokrovsk direction. This is the Russian hunger convoy that was spotted by other OSINTs and shared by this one. So several of the vehicles, Russian tanks, they were used for attack attempt in Pokrovsk. And probably you want to know what happened to those. Well, I can show you. Just need to scroll down the feed, again Unit Observer, that's the channel. Here we go with the Russian tank burning, and even smoke is coming from the barrel itself. It was shared by Creek4 here. I also follow this guy. He's the officer of Ukrainian army and he shares lots of those images. Actually, it was his forecast that Russia may start to use convoy attacks once again in an attempt to break through Ukrainian defense in Pokrovsk, and indeed they wasted lots of the vehicles for those attempts. So as for the analytic and soldier, I guess Chris4 here knows a lot. So Russia lost that convoy somewhere on the way to Mirnograd, near Rozyne, I think. Well, at least on Mykovsk map, here we have some of the Russian vehicle losses, and yeah, that's the new one. Yeah, 100% that that's the same convoy was already published. I mean, the full video. Not the only vehicle, there were several of those, including that tank. And one more video from Ukrainian drone volunteer Sternenko. You may see some of the Russian vehicles from the previous attacks, which failed miserably in the same place. And here is the new one. Yeah, this convoy definitely was spotted and stopped. Russia failed miserably this time, and you see, basically there is no place to hide. No leaves, nothing in this tree line, maybe just some of the trenches there if Russians are lucky. One smoke is coming from one vehicle, here 2 of those, one more was spotted. So totally 2 of the tanks, 2 of the BMPs, and later on Russia tried to evacuate its soldiers, sending this kind of the vehicle to the place, some sort of the truck with armor plates. Well, it was also hit. And here it is burning. And judging on the chassis, it looks like the main tank was T-80 with many of the wheels. Yeah, looks like it. And just a couple of days ago, I was speaking about this failed Russian attack attempt also with the several vehicles not far away from Popov Yar. They tried to go to Shakhove, and you see they have the same losses again and again on what they proclaim as their controlled territory. You see everything is in red. For Russian maps, it's also in red. Nevertheless, behind the front lines, Russians cannot secure their vehicles, cannot secure their supplies, and even moving of the infantry forces. They are spotted by Ukrainian drones, which did some of the strikes on Russians. Which means, yes, the situation for Ukrainian army in Mirnograd is critical. And as our guys reported, there is even an encirclement of Ukrainian army here. But you may understand, watching those videos, that Ukraine still may operate with drones, so this encirclement is not tight at all. So Ukraine is still capable to withdraw the forces, yes, with losses, but still capable. Alright, I need to check out the update from Deep State. There are no any changes from Pokrov's direction for today. And I wonder where, okay, in the Yampil, Russia moved ahead. Yampil was the supply hub for Ukraine after Russia cut very important bridges across Siversky Donets River to supply Liman city. Well, Russia moved to Yampil today. Yeah, just a light advancement in the forest. And if we go from Yampil to Siversk, Russia moved there too. So yesterday, today, Vector goes directly to the city from the eastern flank. And also not far away from Siversk in Vimivka, Russia moves too. I would say this update happened for the last couple of days. Also, there is the movement over here, just a little, yeah. Russia tries to move its forces simultaneously from multiple of the directions, but it's not working well because they cannot achieve the huge breakthrough in some specific spot, and the fight for Pokrovsk and Mirnograd still continues, which is crazy as for me, with the forces Russia deployed to this region, and still they cannot take Mirnograd and Pokrovsk fully. They have heavy losses. It's crazy. About Hulaypole, there are no any movements for the last day. Alright, to the other news. As it was reported by the Firepoint company, they produced a bunch of new Flamingo missiles. This is FP5 modification, the same one. The images are being presented by Associated Press, and just look at the size of this cruise missile. It is damn huge. It has its own positive and negative sides, but the best thing about this missile that it's not that expensive compared to any other type of the cruise missile. Yes, it is big, yes, it is visible for Russian radars, but the components of this missile is easy to find, and basically it's the huge aviation bomb equipped with the AI-24, as I remember this engine, which is installed on Yakovlev 40. Ukraine still has a bunch of those, as well as the standard FAB 1000 aviation bombs that's in the warhead of this missile. So potentially Ukraine is capable to produce many of those, and even if there is 20% of effectiveness of Flamingo, it is still worth producing. Because not only this missile is the cheapest one, but it is also the most powerful. And even a single missile strike would be enough to, for example, cancel some of the Russian refinery, or oil storage, munition storage, Russian base, anything. The plus for it that even if Russia installs some of the meshes to protect their facilities, in this case, it will not help. It is just too powerful. 1 ton of TNT, even more, just a little more. It's crazy. Alright, European Union and G7 are discussing replacing their Russian oil price cap with a full ban on providing maritime services for Russian oil shipments. So basically ban the Russian oil shadow fleet. It should have been done long time ago, since 2022, because despite sanctions, over 1/3 of Russia's oil exports still rely on Western tankers and services, mainly from Greece, Cyprus and Malta, transporting crude oil mostly to India and China. Source Reuters. Yeah, guys, I'm telling you that this war is kind of strange. Then our allies, or partners, should we call them, continue to purchase Russian fossil fuels, continue to feed the Russian war machine, continue to provide services for the Russian crude oil deliveries, and continue to supply spare parts even for the Russian military via the third countries. Damn strange. Damn strange. I understand why it is happening, because some particular individuals, CEOs or managers of the companies, they are greedy bastards. They want to earn money no matter what. For them, this war doesn't matter. They want to make business as usual, and if they're not capable to make it as usual, they'll try to way out from it, circumnavigating sanctions and all of the restrictions. Even in Russian Shahids, even in Russian cruise missiles, there are Western-made parts, components, which are new, coming to Russia somehow. Well, hopefully this time G7, European Union, will finally block the Russian shuttle fleet, block all of the services for it, because this is unhinged, guys. Not a long time ago, Europe introduced the ban to purchase Russian gas till 2027. Yeah, it might look positive, but if you read this story from the other end, it means that our partners will continue to finance the Russian war machine for an entire year of 2026. And who knows, maybe they'll postpone their decision as Donald Trump postponed sanctions on Russian Lukoil gas stations, which are placed outside Russia. The United States Treasury Department stated that yesterday. So sanctions, kind of strange sanctions also, yeah. There are some of the exceptions for Trump's friends as Orban. Now they postpone sanctions on foreign stations of Lukoil. So sanctions are there, but they're not there. Interesting. Some great news are coming from the United Kingdom. They are willing to confiscate £8 billion of the Russian assets frozen in Britain to support Ukraine, as they warn that President Putin is an active threat to United Kingdom's citizens' security and prosperity. The Times reports about it. Could be a good news, and also in this case, it's great that UK is not the member of EU. Otherwise, it for sure wouldn't be possible, because there are some of the disputes around confiscation of the Russian assets in Europe. I mean, European Union itself. Well, I hope it works for UK to confiscate those funds and transfer for military needs for Ukraine, because for sure the next year is going to be very difficult, because the Russian military budget alone is 164 billion United States dollars. So Ukraine needs something like that, maybe a little less, just for a single year, guys. And Europe itself, it has no choice but to support Ukraine. Guys, without Ukraine, Europe is doomed, and let me tell you why. So in Germany, they are saying about some sort of the soft conscription, but even that is not okay for the German Z generation or for German youth. So in Germany, there will be some of the strikes against the war, and they say, like those protesters, that I would rather be under Putin's rule in Germany than fight in Germany. Next, I also report about it. So since Germany is getting ready for the possible war with Russia, there is some certain law for conscription is adopted. All 18-year-old men will be required to undergo a medical examination, and if there is a shortage in recruits, they will be selected through a lottery. So some of them will get lucky, some of them will not get lucky, depends on what they want, lucky or not lucky. There is an organization, well, there are not many people, but they promise protests in 90 of the cities of Germany. They call to obey occupation just in case Russia attacks. Yeah, here the protests are bigger, so they need Ukraine. Europe needs Ukraine. The best idea for Europe is to hold Russia in Ukraine, but for that Ukraine needs weapons and all of the possible support. It shouldn't be the situation like we have right now. Then Europe gives Russia more money for purchasing fossil fuels from Russia than it gives the help for Ukraine, including the military support. Because if Russia starts the war In Europe, something tells me that the vast part of population will not agree to fight for their countries in Europe. It could be the same as in the Second World War, then many of the countries just surrendered to Nazi Germany. Yeah, Germany used to be the country of warriors, but now it seems like not any longer. Ja, Liebe von Putin beherrscht werden als im Krieg, sagt Schüler. Yeah, of course, they would like to obey Putin. And Putin might use the same man for further wars, like he does with Chechens. The same story is with Mongols centuries ago. They occupied lands, territories, nations, and they forced them to fight for Mongols, so Mongol Empire was not about Mongols themselves. They were actually minority. There were multiple of the people in that empire united under Mongols. And for Ukraine, it's also the same. Like Ukraine has two of the choices: to stop defense and surrender to Russia, or continue defense. That's it. No other choices. All of those peace agreements, they're about nothing, because Russia says it openly. We want war to continue. We want to occupy Ukraine. We want to conquer them, to put the puppet government to occupy their lands. That is what Putin is saying. And two of those outcomes for Ukraine, they're both not ideal. If Ukraine continues to fight, yes, it will cause losses for Russia, but also Ukraine has big losses. And Ukraine will continue to lose army men, resources, and also our allies. You see, they're kind of tired, especially United States of America. Who would have thought, yeah? And in other case, if Russia just occupies Ukraine, Ukrainians will be used to fight against NATO countries, Baltics, Poland. Yeah, it could be Chechen scenario.
From Berlin to Munich, thousands of Germany's school pupils protested a controversial bill passed by Parliament for a new voluntary military service. It means mandatory medical screening for all 18-year-old men starting January, along with a questionnaire for everyone born from 2008 onward.
I understand that it's not about the entire society of Germany, but according to official rating polls, just 16% of Germans are willing to defend their country. 16 is a very low number. And the value of life in Germany, for example, is incomparable to what it is for Russia. Russia doesn't care, and Russians do not care. They have million people lost in this war, wounded, KA, crazy, but Russian society is still okay. For them, this war is somewhere out there. They still live their miserable lives. Can Germany sustain that number of the losses in case of the confrontation with such a big enemy as Russia? I don't think so. Putin and Margarita Simonyan, who is the main editor of the Russia Today, launched Russia Today India during Putin's visit to that country. So by the time everyone wants to block Russian propaganda, I mean sane countries, they won't block Russian propaganda. Russia just opened its broadcast service to more than a billion population country, India. Yeah, Russia wants its support globally, and India, it seems like, don't mind for Putin to launch that brainwash thing. And now my special thanks for Patreon supporters and also members of the channel. Guys, thank you so much for making my job possible. Every day I am filming videos for everyone because of you. So guys, please support me if you can, of course, on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description just below. Or you may support me on membership by pressing the button join. If you don't have this opportunity, no worries, just press like to this video and subscribe for the channel. That helps to propel this video in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much for that as well. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.